couple of things we thought I would talk on tonight. We're going to touch on compositing, which when you're a beginner to Photoshop can be quite scary, really. But I'm going to show you a really simple way tonight to make it really creative. And I thought that I would start with this simple version straight off because I judged Camera Club a few weeks ago with their creative competition, and I was a little bit dismayed to see that a lot of people interpreted creative as just going into Photoshop and putting a filter on top of a photo, and they let Photoshop do the work, and that was it. So they didn't actually do anything themselves. They just slapped this filter on and presented the picture, which was a little bit underwhelming for me because it's not as much creativity, I guess, as a judge wants to see. So if I've got one parrot here, I think I want to start with, okay, so I've got my one parrot there, and then I don't want to add in that second one. I'm going to get rid of that second one, and I'm going to add in this little one on the side. So if I turn on the parrot on the right, and then just add a layer to it, and then flip the layer so it's invisible, and with a brush, with a normal brush and its opacity at 100%, something less. Oh, don't do that to me. Yeah, it was going back to the brush tool. Okay, there we go. Get back there. This is crazy. My Photoshop's going crazy. General brush, make it larger pixels.
Going back to the art brush.
It's going back to the art brush. Sorry, I don't know why it's going back to the art brush. There is something really crazy going on with let's go back to general brush and a soft brush.
Back to the art brush again.
Why is it defaulting back to the art brush? Okay. Soft round brush there. Oh, okay. Okay, so finally I've got a soft round brush and I've got that little bird underneath. So just with your layer black, just now brush in your bird. Okay, and he just appears. You don't have to worry about the background because the background is stable.
The wind is blowing the background around a bit.
You don't have to worry too much about the background because it's all quite still there. Need to do it with the second layer as well. Put another layer on there, flip it over to a black layer, and then brush that one in as well. So there is a little bit of wind in the background, okay, and it does move a little bit, but you don't need to worry too much about that. If I was going to worry too much about this photo and clean it up, that tree in the background just looks like a big fat twig, and I would probably clean that up with a Gaussian blur. But for the purposes of tonight, I'm having so many gremlins in the system, so I'm just going to not worry about the twig in the background there. So there's a little bird there. Now, what have we got here? We've got a little fellow there, and I think I could do the same with him, but he's then going to be problematic. As you can see, if I brush him in, I'm going to be brushing out the other bird there. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush him in. I'm going to brush him in and leave him there. And I'm going to turn off, that was the first bird there. I'm going to pull that layer up to the top and turn it on, and I'm going to cut him out and move him manually, which is deviating a little bit from this technique, but he's in the way. So I'm going to press W on my keyboard. I could select the subject, let Photoshop select the subject. It's a bit too much. I'll press Option to minus a little bit of the cutout for him, bring it around his tail. Yep. I minus, get rid of those marching ants, minus, all those marching ants that are all in the way there. Get rid of all those minus marching ants. Add in a little bit more around his tail. Okay. And I'm going to do, I could do select and mask up the top if I wanted to clean him up and bring out all the edges of his feathers and make his edges really sharp. I would take it into select and mask and clean him up, but I'm just going to clean that up a little bit with the option key again, and then I'm going to press Control J, and it puts him on a new layer for me. So with that new layer, you can see now that he's just there. I'm just going to use E for eraser, make the brush a little bit bigger and get rid of those little bits in there. And I'll go back to the layer and I'll turn on the other layers. And because he is in the way a little bit, I'm going to move him. I'm going to Control T, and I'm just going to move him across. I think I'll move him down a little bit there. I'll accept him, and I'll turn off the layer. Where is he? He's hiding from me.
How are you flipping the mask? Turning the eye on and off.
Just wait a minute. Where's he gone? Why is he still there? Nope. Turn you off. Which layer are you hiding on? It's that one, isn't it? Nope. Nope. That one. I'm going to turn that one off, that one on.
The background.
And a background. What's happened to my background? Did I use them as my background? It's interesting. Let's just brush in a background then. Yeah.
Okay, you need to make sure that all the photos are aligned.
Yeah.
The one that you moved up, move it back down. That's where you went wrong.
Okay. That background. So I know what's happening. It's from this one. No. That's me.
Robin, the one that you moved up, you've got to put it back down the bottom.
There's gremlins in this. You wouldn't think that I do this all day for pleasure, would you? Okay, let's just take off that mask. Okay. Yes, there's my background. There we go. He's been, let's clean him up a little bit. Okay, we're back on track now. And and I want to bring him back in. You can see I'm just going back through the layers and cleaning him up a little bit. And my parrot, there he is. We got there. We got there. Okay, so he's not quite sitting on there really at the moment. So I'll just drop him down a little bit as well. Okay. There. Now this fellow as well, I'm going to cut him out and move him into position. So I'm going to press W again on my keyboard. I've got highlighted that layer in Photoshop. I'm going to press W, brings him up, and that will select the subject there.
This one you probably want to select subject and select mask.
And I'm going to I'm just going to select and mask him a little bit. And I'm going to go up to the top left corner and use the most finicky tool in Photoshop, which is select and mask. Okay, I want to just bring back the tips of his wings a little bit and clean up those edges a little bit as well. And you can see, because it's really finicky, I'm just going to bring it in with a Command+, clean up those edges. I'm going to use the brackets to make that, and I'm going to clean up down there. Control Z, I'm going to take those ones back. Okay, move him back into the screen. I'm going to add in his little nose. And I'm going to just make that a lot smaller. Bring it in. Option will get minus, and that will take out his nose just a little bit there. Clean up the edge of his wing a little bit there. Or actually, I might add that bit of wing back in. My Photoshop is going so slow and wieldy. This should be a lot smoother for me, but I'm just going to battle on. And I really, you know, it gives hope to everybody out there that has problems with Photoshop. Really, is it sometimes it's just such a finicky beast. Now, I made that straight line by just clicking on one spot, holding my shift key down and clicking back to the other spot, and it runs a straight line between there. I'm going to just clean up, fill in his wings a little bit there because they're quite opaque there. This is what the Refine Edge tool does. It's not a perfect beast. I'll go back to cleaning up those spaces in between a little bit. And that's all I'm going to try and do at the moment. So I'll make him smaller by Command minus. I'm going to go down to the selection. And I usually like to output to a new layer. I know some people like to go to selection, but I like to output to a new layer. So I'm just going to put him on a new layer, press OK, and he comes back into the photo. So I can now select highlighting him. Bring my photo back. Oh, make that smaller. There we go. Make that a bit smaller. Control T on his layer. And then I'm going to move him to somewhere that suits my composition. So I think I'm just going to move him over there and place him on there. And I'll press the tick to highlight him. And then it's saved. So with that, actually, the little parrot down the bottom, where is he? The one bottom right. I don't like it. Yeah, something's going on there. Yep. So just wait a minute. There he is. Am I missing one? I'm missing one now. Yeah. That one, I need to brush him back in a little bit more with B for brush. Here he comes. There he goes. Okay, so you get the idea. I know I'm being very slow tonight, but hopefully that appeals. Those of you that are advanced Photoshop users just laugh at me, okay? Because you've all been there before anyway. I know. Now, I think I did also in my, so there's my picture, there's my base picture. And you can see with that method that even though I did a little bit of cutting out, I've really just been able to, just create, just a fun montage of all these birds around the waterhole just by keeping my camera still on a tripod, not changing the settings and firing away and then bringing them back into Photoshop as layers. So I'm going to get that little bit of fluff that I gave you as well. Where is it? There. The purple flower. Yep. Okay. So this little purple flower that I've put in, and I'm going to pop that up the top here. Command T, bring him down to the bottom. Okay. Now this is quite a complicated cutting out process, which is why I didn't give it to you tonight. Okay, this you can take up hours and hours of your time, but I just thought let's just cover up the little water bowl there, which is what I did in the original photo, and place him there. Click him into place, and then I'm going to Control T, make another copy of that. Control T again, make a couple more copies of that as well. Okay, so if I do that one, if I click the second copy, Control T, then I'll have another one to move across to the side. Put him down, hide him into place, click him into place, turn on the next one. Control T to move him. I might shift, hold down the shift key and swap him around a little bit so he looks slightly different, and just move him off to the side there as well. Just for fun, nothing else, just to soften those edges. How are you doing to me, Photoshop? Okay, there, and put him in there. So that, oh, I've got one more left, haven't I? Let's use him up somewhere. Bring him down. Bring him down the front there, like that as well. So there's my base image, and that is one of the things that you do with compositing, is that you always start with your structure, the structure of your photo first. I haven't done any global adjustments. I haven't done any curves. I haven't done any levels. I haven't managed any of the light or anything as well. It's essentially like, this is the photo that you're starting with, okay, so that you would drag into Photoshop in the first place. With that, I'm a mad layer upper, so I'm going to Command Option E on my Mac keyboard, and that turns all that into a single layer, okay? I could turn all those off. You can see my file down the bottom there is quite large, 2.4 gig. That uses up a lot of space. So what I tend to do now is that I tend to go up to the top, Photoshop, New, and I'm going to make a new picture, and my camera club, say, size is custom 1920 by 1080, and I'm just going to create a new one there. So I'm going to take my single layer, and I can cut and paste, but I'm too lazy, and I just drag it across and drop it in. I ignore that. Do you want to proceed? Yes. Target depth, Control T. It's going to bring it down to fit into that picture. And I've got a smaller document to work with. Right. No. Sorry, I've got suggestions in my ears. Not suggestions aren't my thoughts. Yeah, so that's a much smaller file and easier to work with. Okay, and I just set that up as a template already in Photoshop there. So then we'll just go on and we can do, what am I going to do with it? Just do a curves layer. This is what I would normally start with, an auto curves layer, to see what that does for me. And I'm going to just use the auto color correct options, see which one I like. Actually, don't mind that. It's quite interesting because this was the light in Arkaroola. This is in the middle of the desert in South Australia, and anybody that's been there, the dirt is really red, so you get a beautiful red, lovely red orange glow to all the light there. So although that one is quite different, I actually feel this is more representative. Channel contrast, monochrome contrast. Actually, I don't mind the mono. Fill with a levels layer like Tim likes to do. I just want to pinch in the whites, pinch in the darks. Okay, and like that. Mulla mulla. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now I've got Tim. I'm going to hop back to the other picture, the larger one, the big gig file, because Tim's telling me that he'd like to see the background a whole lot darker. So the way I would go about that is not to layer that, but to use all those, turn all those old layers back on again. Yep. Where did that bird come from? Now he's thrown me out again. Whoop. No, he's thrown me now. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to play with those layers again because my luck is not with me tonight. I'm going to have another sip of my organic wine and plow on. Okay, so if he wants to darken the background, I'm going to do W to select the subjects again, and I can just run that tiny little cursor over the bird and another bird and down over the rock and up over the bird
What happens if you turn the birds off and then darken what's left?
I'm just going to do it this way. We do a lot of things differently in our house. I'm trying to stay very polite about that. Okay, run that up. Okay, so then I'm going to Command J, and that will just put those subjects on a layer. So if I take the layer behind, and then I do brightness and contrast layer, and click the little box down the bottom, the clipping layer that clips it only to that layer, then that will allow the background to darken down quite a bit as well.
And blur it too.
Okay, so we could do that. I can then address also, I can address on that layer, and I can address the little twig in the background. I can put a little Gaussian blur on there. Blur, Gaussian blur, everybody's favorite. Just put a very small radius on there.
Maybe clip it.
Okay, and yep. No, it's going to brighten that down. I could, with those little birds, I could then perhaps lift a little bit up in the shadows. So I do another brightness and contrast, clip that to the little cutout, and just bring in a little bit of light there, which creates a little bit of depth of field there as well.
Paint it out on the rock.
Now he wants me to paint it out on the rock. So I'll put X. Paint it out on the rock. There we go. And that'll keep Tim happy a little bit. I haven't got any shadows on the birds there either as well. Okay, but that's just going to paint that as well. And I'm going to leave that there, because I made that extremely complicated for those of you that are beginners in Photoshop, but it's quite a simple method. And I think while we're all in lockdown too at the moment, it's something that we can actually do, at home. You can just line up the lounge room sofa, and you can put your dog on the sofa, or you can even put yourself or your wife or your kids on the sofa, and keep the sofa still, and just shoot a number of shots, and then take them into Photoshop as layers, put a mask on top of each one and brush each one in, and just have a bit of fun and see what you can do with it. So that's my very simple technique for beginners compositing in Photoshop. Also, the other reason I like doing this is that sometimes when you're shooting, and because I shoot a lot of wildlife, you get a lot of shots that are really lovely, but they don't see the light of day because they're not good enough for competition. You don't particularly want to print them, or they're just sitting there in their millions. So it's a fun way of just using up a lot of your really lovely, wildlife shots that you would otherwise just sit there in a raw file and not use. So that's why I enjoy doing that. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Tim.
Are you?
Yep, you can unmute yourself now instead of chatting in my ear.
What am I going to do?
I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to talk. I'm going to finish my glass of wine now too. Watch me gulp it down in one hit.
Those workshops, you meant to be muted. Well, we missed the tea. Don't use that link. It needs a tea. That's the other thing, where keyboards don't work. Yeah. And what we do is that as we post each video on YouTube, I put that on the workshop page as the little logo, the same one we use for the advertising of it, and then put a link underneath it, and that'll take you directly to the YouTube channel. But if you click on one of the other links, it'll take you to the YouTube channel with the other video. And the other thing you might like to do, if you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, that will make it easier for you to find it. And you can also save the channel. So that way, when you're looking for the next ones and you go into YouTube, you just hit the save channels and it takes you directly to the Wanderlust channel. So because there's a few different Wanderlusts on YouTube. I think there's a wedding photographer guide. I'm not sure if you've seen the ads on telly, but there's now some health products that are being marketed as Wanderlust. So we'll have to have a chat to them and see if we can get a discount. We'll offer them in all of the workshops. They can get you know, cheap versions of the of the health products, all pre-labeled Wanderlust. So let them do it for us. I think we're the way the COVID is tracking. I think we're going to be doing these for a few weeks to go. So we were having a bit of a chat this other week, just looking maybe to structure them. So we take you through a few different things. So rather than just sort of hero things that we've shown, we might actually do a couple where we do work through something over a couple of weeks. So you can develop stuff up, develop a skill in the first one, use the skill in the second one, and then something a little bit more in the third one. So we might do something like that. And so that way it sort of helps you to start with the image in Photoshop, see what you can do with it, how you manage it, and then how you might use that in other ones. So the one tonight, for instance, with robins, we might do a more detailed one where we show you the cutting out and creating all the little library symbols, essentially. So you create all your birds with all the cutting out and all the foliage with all the cutting out. And then we'll then show you how you composite and put those together, but also maybe show you how you can put those into the library, the Adobe library, so that they're there to use for not only this image, but you can then use them for other images. So if you spend your time and get some good, all right, so what we can do, I've just got to move a couple of my screens around this time. So if we come up to the fourth one down, the little, there we go, with the little plus in it. And I can use my square brackets. The right square bracket makes it bigger, the left square bracket makes it smaller. So if I come down, if we want to cut Robin out, for instance, I click and hold with my my mouse, and you can see that the marching ants commence, and I can just work my way around to select Robin. I can go back to the minus to push the marching ants back in a little bit.
The option key, pretty much.
Yep, and then I can go select and mask up the top. And that you can see is highlighted Robin. And then I go Control plus to zoom in a bit. And this is what Rob was doing on the birds. So I can then refine the mask by, it's going to do it for me. Yeah, we'll do the minus tool. So I'm actually using a brush, and if I go plus, I can actually brush the mask out. So we're getting rid of the red. We'll just tidy up the edge of Rob's face there. Oh,
What?
oh, what have I done here? I've hit the space bar and press that. I can hold it together. And we'll come down and we'll just tidy up the edge. We'll bring back a little bit of the hair, a little bit of the edge of the pom-pom, run around the back of her jacket. Tidy up the jacket there. Tidy up the front of the jacket. We're just getting rid of the dark halo off the edge. And we'll maybe get rid of the white halo around the back. All right, so just with that refine edge tool. So if I go Control minus, that shows me the whole thing. And then if I go Command or Control J, oh, I've got to accept it first. So I go down here and go OK. If I go, so at the moment, we've just got the background layer, we've got the marching ants around Robin. I go Control J, and what that has done, if you have a look up the top there, is that it's taken my selection and put it in a new layer. So if I turn the background off, you can see that Robin's there on her nice lonesome. I can then zoom in here, and if I wanted to, I could spend some time with, so on the left-hand side, if you come down here, there's an eraser. I can choose the eraser tool.
E for eraser.
Yeah. And I can
What's your keyboard shortcut?
make this a bit smaller, and I can come along and I can brush some of that out if I want, maybe with a black.
Your opacity's too low. Your opacity's on
Yep.
30%.
So increase the opacity a bit, increase the flow a bit. There you go, and we can sort of brush out that little bit of fog in the background. We can go in and we can tidy up the mask and actually get. I can end up with quite an accurate version of Robin. All right. If I then come across to if I'm looking here, if it's you've got libraries, all right. If you haven't got libraries, you can go up to Window and open Libraries, all right. And Window opens up the libraries, and in Libraries, it comes when it first opens, comes standard with some things from Photoshop. So I could click on here and go create a new library, and I could call this library people, and I go create. All right, and then down the bottom, I've got a plus, so I can add an element, and in this case, I'm going to add a graphic, which is going to be Robin, and you can see that it's popped Robin in a layer, and Robin ends up being essentially a library symbol. All right, so if I then come along and I want to open another image, for instance, let's find one to open. So let's open the same image. I can then, with my library symbol of Robin, come and drag her on, and I can move Robin around, and I've now created a permanent library symbol of Robin. I can, if I go Shift and hold down the Shift button, I can flip that over, and I can move this down. I can come and put Robin, another Robin sitting on the other side. All right, so you can create.
You can't have too many Robins, can you?
and if I want a bigger Robin, I can.
No, you need a smaller Robin. Never a bigger Robin.
I can have a bigger Robin. All right? So you're echoing. Turn yourself off. So essentially, you can create your own library of things. All right. So if we go back and look at the library, so hang on, I've got to tick to accept it. So if I click on people, it shows me all the other libraries I've got, and I've got some birds that I've done, and I've done this way. So if I click on the bird library, then I've got a white heron that I've isolated and created my own library symbol. I can also have my eagle flying past. All right, because I've captured my eagle, and then I can reuse my eagle again and again in pictures if I choose to. So it's a way where you can just isolate things out of your own images and create your own little library files, and then reuse them in your compositing. And that's the kind of the fun bit, because instead of going and getting some clip art, you actually build up your own library of stuff. All right, and just like I showed you the other week, I've also got skies in that way. So you can come and add your cloudy sky in the background. You can essentially become your own artist. So instead of having to paint all the stuff from scratch every time, you can just create your own series of symbols. All right, and then every time I bring one of these library symbols on, if you have a look up on the right here, it puts it on its own layer. All right, so I'm able to turn those things off individually because they're all on their own layer. And a bit like we did the other week, you can then put different controls onto each of those layers. So for instance, what's that one? That's the heron layer. So if I click on the heron layer and I come down to a control, I can, for instance, put a photo filter on that layer. So we'll start with that, and then I come down here and I clip it to my heron, and I can then change the color of my heron with a photo filter. All right, so I can send him blue or yellow, or I can do all sorts of things to my heron based on. So for instance, when I brought him in, if he doesn't quite blend with, so if the image has a little bit of a blue toning, then this is where I would then change the toning of the heron to match the picture. All right, so if I turn that on and off, you can see he's gone from a yellowy heron to more of a bluey heron, fitting in with the lake haze sort of lighting conditions. So you're able to then individually manipulate all those library symbols. So it's a very, as you can see, it's a very simple process. So all Photoshop does is that it, to load something into the library here, you've got to either choose the library or make a new library, and then if we're in the people one, and then you're going to hit the plus. But what Photoshop does is it chooses the last layer. So you've got to make sure that whatever you want copied, it's only in the last layer. So if I had done, if I hadn't turned off the base layer and left Robin isolated, then it would have taken the whole lot of it. So you've got to isolate the subject, put it on a plain background with that Control J or Command J to put it on isolated, so it's got no background, and then you can then save it on its own without a background and use as a library symbol. Yeah. So
Very good.
Stop share. So that technique is another way. So what Robin was essentially doing when she was showing you all the layers there tonight is that all the layers were there and she was just brushing in each one. But you could, if you wanted to go to the trouble, you could take each one, create a library symbol, put it in your library, and then just drag those on and play around with the composition by bringing those birds on and, you know, one or two of them, changing the scale and doing that sort of thing. So the simple way is you just overlay the pictures and then you brush them in, and then to get a little bit more flexibility in it, then you're able to actually create your own library symbols out of each of them, and then you can reuse them not only in that picture but in other images. So you've always got, you know, you've got that time when you think, oh, wouldn't it be nice just to have that feature in the corner or add a little bit more detail? Then you've got something that you've captured before, and you've got a little library symbol that you can use and drag onto the picture. So so that's the other, yeah, it's just expands your options. So once you start thinking a little bit more creatively about thinking of photography as capturing data and then putting it together, that's a different approach to capturing an image with everything in it. So I think on the earlier ones I mentioned where you know, my sort of background comes from, you know, sketching and drawing and the like, and the camera is fantastic at capturing detail, capturing all the fine detail, which is hard to sketch and hard to draw. So essentially you've got a tool that can do the hard work for you. So instead of having to spend an hour there to draw the bird, snap, bird's captured. But then with that, I'm then able to, having done that, instead of having to spend my hour with the bird drawing it, I can still create the image I was going to create, but I import all the data that the camera's captured for. So just a different, same process, but just a different way of assembling, because you're using the camera because it's got a skill. And so instead of me spending, you know, sort of time management, isn't it? So instead of me spending an hour drawing the bird and then incorporating into my picture, snap, bird's done, bring it in. That means I've got another 59 minutes to muck around with the bird, right? So I don't actually mind spending a lot of time fine-tuning, trimming, doing other stuff, because the camera capture has saved me so much time in putting the image together, and I got that additional time to then spend. So, you know, someone sort of says, oh, you're going to spend at least 10 minutes cutting out the bird. Well, so what? Because it saves me all that other time in creating the artwork or the image that I'm trying to create. So, that's another little add-on for you. But that, so someone actually asked during the week, were we going to go through how you put stuff in the library? So that's why I thought I'd just also quickly cover that there. So that just shows you how you because the other thing that happens is that library goes with you. All right, so if you go, so Mike, if you're at the beach and you do that and you save it in Photoshop at the beach, when you go back to Kirribilli, it's actually, and you open Photoshop, it's in there because it's saved in Adobe's server. All right, so when you call up open your library, it's everywhere that you open up Adobe. All right, so you don't have to, I forgot the bird, it's on the laptop back at home. It actually goes with you. So all those little library symbols, Adobe loads it up for you every time you open Photoshop, wherever you open it up. They're all similar approaches at different ways of doing things. So bringing the light in with the different blending modes we did in the cave, exactly the same essentially technique for bringing the birds in, or creating library symbols of things that you've photographed too. So just isolating the bits that you want out of the photos. So it frees you up a bit. It's a bit more fun when you go photographing too, because you're not just, you might say, well, I'm off to capture clouds today, or you're wandering down the street and you see, 3 bin chickens who are just in the right composition. You say, right, caught the bin chickens, I can use that somewhere. So it's kind of fun because you're then assembling all these things that you can then use in that in creating images or just giving a bit of detail. Even those images where you've got those fantastic sort of silhouetted, very dramatic cloud scenes with mountains in the background, and then you just need that little silhouetted person just to give it that oomph. So if you've captured the silhouetted person, in they go, because more than likely, the time you've caught the beautiful landscape, you're not going to have the guy with the umbrella or the guy walking the dog or whatever available for you at the time when you caught the picture. So you're going to need to have caught those at another time.